I came into their lives quietly. No applause, no speeches. Just a man with calloused hands and steady breath, stepping into a house already cracked from the inside out. Zach was 12. Maddie was 9. Their mother, Amber, carried the exhaustion of someone who'd been stretched too thin for too long, and still chose to pretend nothing was broken. When she introduced me, she smiled. The kids didn't. The early days were all nods and one-word answers. Yes. No. Whatever. I bought the groceries. I fixed the flickering lights. I installed the shelves in their bedrooms like a man trying to build stability plank by plank. Amber said they needed time. I believed her. It was the first mistake I made, thinking time could fix what truth had already decided. Trevor, their biological father, lived 2 states away, but he might as well have been in the next room, judging by the way he haunted our life. He was the man of big gestures. Birthdays meant flights and expensive toys. Christmas meant promises and Instagram photos. He never stayed, never paid a bill, never heard about the school calls, the ER visit, the nights Maddie cried herself to sleep. That was me. That was always me. But in their eyes, he was Dad. I didn't argue. I never did. I just kept showing up. Zach needed cleats? I bought them. Maddie needed braces? I signed the paperwork and skipped my own dental appointment. When their school asked for volunteers, I was there. Field trips, packed lunches, late-night math help. I showed up even when they didn't see it. Especially when they didn't. Still, something in that house always leaned away from me. Like I was the wrong shape in the right frame. I thought if I worked harder, if I carried more, they'd see me as something more than the man sleeping down the hall from their mother. But effort doesn't matter when hearts have already voted you out. When Zach turned 16, I gave him a truck. Not a new one, I couldn't afford that. But it was rebuilt with my own hands. Weekends in the garage. Grease under my nails. 100 little decisions made for his benefit. He drove it like it was nothing. Never asked how long I'd been working overtime to pay for the parts. Never said thank you. Maddie got a laptop for school, the exact model she wanted. I overheard her telling her friend she hated the color. Amber said I was too sensitive. They're teenagers. It's a phase. No, a phase is a slam door or missed curfew. What I was getting was rejection, systemic, rehearsed, and, worst of all, approved by silence. And then came the moment. Zach came home late one night, stinking of beer and bad choices. I was waiting. He tried to breeze past me, shoulders squared like he'd already won. You're grounded, I said, calm, firm, like a father should be. He smirked, not with fear, not with shame, with amusement. You can't ground us, he said. You didn't raise us. Then Maddie, always the echo, always standing behind him like a backup vocalist to his cruelty, added her line. You're not our dad. Not yelled, not spat, just spoken like truth, like fact, like gravity. I looked at Amber. She was at the dining table, scrolling her phone. She didn't look up. She didn't defend me. She didn't even flinch. That silence did more damage than the words ever could. And in that instant, something inside me, something old and quiet and hopeful, died. Not in a dramatic way, just like a candle that runs out of wick. The light vanished. I nodded, turned, and walked to the garage. I stood there for a long time, surrounded by tools I'd bought with paychecks they never asked about. I remembered every drive to school, every appointment I took time off to attend, every joke I made that fell flat, every meal they ate without a word, every birthday I made easier, every wound I bandaged, every boundary I enforced, every moment I tried to earn something I thought was inevitable, acceptance. That night, I made a decision. If I'm not your dad, then I won't act like it. The next morning, Zach asked me for gas money. Ask your dad, I said. Maddie needed a ride to dance class. Ask your dad. They blinked, confused. They thought I was sulking. They thought this was petty. It wasn't. It was clarity. Amber asked me what was going on. I looked her in the eyes, the way she wouldn't look at me the night before. I'm adjusting to my role, I said. And just like that, the air in the house changed. Not all at once. Slowly. Like a leak you don't notice until the walls warp. I stopped refilling the gas tanks. I stopped checking the calendar for their events. I stopped showing up. They said I wasn't their father. Fine. Then I wasn't their chauffeur. I wasn't their ATM. I wasn't their safety net. They wanted to live in a world where I didn't matter. So I let them. That weekend, I opened a spreadsheet. Line by line, I calculated every dollar I spent for them monthly. Food, insurance, electricity, streaming, gifts, random bailouts, clothes, subscriptions, repairs, missed work. $950 a month. Not counting the truck, the laptop, the phones. At the bottom of that list, I typed a single word. 0. That's what I owed them now. The next day, I said it out loud for the first time. Zach asked if he could borrow my card for something important. Ask your dad. Maddie rolled her eyes. You're being childish. No, I said. I'm just listening. I heard you loud and clear. Amber didn't protest. Not really. She asked me if I was really going to punish them like this. I said, I'm not punishing them. I'm giving them what they asked for. The house grew quieter after that. They started texting Trevor more often, but he rarely replied. The excitement in their voices when his name came up started to fade. They were dialing 911 on a disconnected line. But that's not my part of the story. My part was done. I wasn't their father. And now, finally, I wasn't pretending to be. The silence was never total. It had shape, texture, pressed down in corners. It hung around the dinner table like an extra plate. I stopped cooking. Amber picked up the slack, barely. Takeout boxes filled the fridge. Leftovers stacked beside the sink. Nobody asked questions. Nobody thanked anyone. Zach stayed in his room more, the door always half closed, like an unspoken dare. Maddie's music spilled out of her earbuds like it was supposed to keep me at bay. Amber walked between us like a tightrope artist without a net, pretending the house wasn't rotting from the inside out. But the rot was there. I could smell it in every hallway, hear it in every passive shrug. A week after I pulled out, Zach came home drunk. Not tipsy, not sloppy, drunk. He staggered in with his keys clutched like a weapon, eyes dull, mouth smirking. I didn't yell. I didn't demand explanations. I didn't even stand up. I just looked at him from the recliner, calm as a grave. You're lucky no one's dead, I said. You're grounded. 2 weeks. No truck. No phone. He laughed. That's what broke me, not the booze, not the danger, the laugh. You're not even real family, he said, grinning like he'd found a cheat code. Amber was on the stairs. She heard it, every word. Her lips parted, then closed, like she was considering a defense, then decided it wasn't worth it. Don't you think you're overreacting? She said softly. Overreacting. My stomach went cold. I looked from Zach to her. You're siding with him? I'm saying he's a kid. He made a mistake. No, he didn't. He made a decision. Clear, deliberate decision. And so did she. Later that night, I found my contractor tools scattered across the yard, caked in mud, a few left in the rain. Tools that paid for this roof, that rebuilt Zach's truck, that covered every late bill and field trip. I carried them back into the garage, dripping and dirty. And when I turned to go inside, Zach was standing on the porch. You act like this stuff's even yours, he said, arms folded. It is mine, I said, my voice low. You've only been here 6 years. We don't owe you anything. Maddie stepped outside beside him. He's right, she said. You're acting like we asked you to do all that. I didn't answer. Couldn't. I went inside. Sat at the kitchen table. The same one I refinished last fall while they watched TV. And I made another list. Not of money this time, of time. Hours spent driving, working, repairing, defending, sacrificing. I got to 4,000 before I stopped counting. Then I wrote the same word at the bottom. 0. 0 hours left to give. I was done. The next morning, Amber asked if I could take Maddie to school. Her car was low on gas. I didn't even look up from my coffee. She can ask her dad. Amber flinched but didn't argue. Later, Zach texted me from upstairs. "Can you Venmo me for lunch?" I replied, "Ask your real father. I'm just the guy who lives here." They didn't understand yet, but they would. Maddie started missing dance practices. Zach's truck sat idle. Empty tank, unpaid insurance. I heard them whispering at night, talking about Trevor, calling him, texting him like it was 911. But 911 doesn't respond when you spent years pretending the fire wasn't real. Trevor promised help. Said he'd send money. Said he'd book a trip. Said they could stay with him over spring break. They repeated those promises like mantras, and every one of them dissolved. Maddie's phone was the first casualty. She hadn't paid her portion of the bill. Trevor didn't answer when she called from Amber's phone. I found her crying on the porch after school. Her bag looked heavier than usual. "I hate him," she whispered. "I didn't ask who. I already knew. He blocked me," she said. "I was trying to ask about the trip and he blocked me. I didn't gloat. I didn't offer comfort. I just said what needed saying. You weren't stupid. You were hopeful. There's a difference." She leaned her head on my shoulder. It was the first time in over a year she'd touched me without flinching. A few days later, Zach tried to fix the truck. He asked me for a torque wrench. Just walked into the garage, head down, no swagger. I handed it to him without a word. 10 minutes later, I joined him. He looked up, eyes red, like he hadn't slept. "I didn't realize how much you did for us," he said. "I'm sorry." I nodded. "Apology accepted. But sorry won't fix the truck. You've got to do that yourself." It wasn't spite. It was instruction. That same night, Maddie cleared the dinner table without being asked. She even wiped down the counters. Amber noticed. I saw her watching them with something like confusion, like the blueprint had changed, and she didn't know how to read it anymore. She found me in the garage later. I was cleaning the wrenches Zach had left on the floor. "You were right," she said. "I didn't turn around. I should have backed you up," she added. I set the wrench down. "It's not too late," I said. "But from now on, we're either both parents or neither of us is." She nodded, quiet, almost ashamed. That night, for the first time in years, the house didn't feel hostile. Felt quiet. Not the silence of resentment, but the silence of rebuilding. Of people realizing how far they'd pushed someone and how close they came to losing him. The next morning, Zach left early. When I asked Amber where he went, she said he got a job part-time at a repair shop. Said he wanted to pay for his own gas. Cover his insurance. Maddie started walking the neighbor's dogs. Said she was saving up for a new phone. Hers was still dead. Trevor hadn't replied to a single message since blocking her. Respect started showing up in small places. A thank you here, a door held open there. No grand speeches. No apologies wrapped in tears. Just slow, deliberate shifts in gravity. And I felt it. For the first time, my presence wasn't an expectation. It was acknowledged. Amber watched all this unfold, wordless. Then, one night as we sat on the back porch watching the wind fold through the trees, she said, "I didn't know what you meant until now." I sipped my coffee. "Most people don't until it's too late." "It's not too late for us," she said. I didn't answer right away. I let the wind speak. I let the night do the explaining. Because this wasn't about words anymore. It was about boundaries. About making them feel, with aching clarity, what life looks like when support is withdrawn. When the man who stood behind every moment of their comfort finally let go. They had called me a stranger in my own home. So I became one. And now, finally, they were knocking on the door. Not as owners, but as guests. And this time, they waited to be invited in. Reality doesn't hit all at once. It leaks in drip by drip. Through phone notifications that don't come. Through empty gas tanks. Through promises that never arrive. Through silences from the people who swore they'd always show up. Zach missed practice. Maddie missed a school field trip she'd been talking about for weeks. Her dad never called, never sent the deposit, never explained. Just vanished. Again. I watched them fall into the space I had cleared. Watched them stumble across the void they used to pretend didn't exist. I wasn't punishing them. That's what Amber asked me. Late one night when the kids were already upstairs. Are you doing this to teach them a lesson? She whispered, the guilt catching in her throat. No, I said. I'm letting them learn. There's a difference. Zach stopped asking me for things. He started leaving early in the morning, covered in grease, smelling like a place that demanded more than he could fake. He took the truck I rebuilt and brought it back running smoother than when I gave it to him. He didn't say much, but when he passed me in the hallway, he nodded. Not a full one, just enough. Acknowledgement where mockery used to live. Maddie changed slower. She lingered, hovered at the edges of conversations. Her mood swung harder than Zach's. Hurt first, then anger, then confusion, then the beginnings of something else. She stopped calling me him when talking to Amber. She started saying my name. One syllable. Heavy. Her phone stayed dead. The neighbors gave her $20 here and there for walking their dogs. I saw her count the money in her room. 5s and 1s. No safety net. No cushion. One night, I found her sitting on the porch, face buried in her arms. She didn't look up when I stepped outside. She didn't move. I hate him, she said. I didn't ask who. He blocked me, said I was too demanding, that I needed to grow up. I sat beside her. Not close, just enough. I thought he'd be there, she whispered. I really did. He said he would. You believed in a story, I said. Everyone does, until the story runs out. She didn't cry. She didn't break down. She just nodded. Once, twice, slow. Then, for the second time that month, she leaned against me. Lightly. No weight. Just a gesture. But it meant more than anything she'd said in years. The next day, Amber found me in the garage. She looked tired, not physically, but something deeper. A weight behind her eyes. I talked to Trevor, she said. And he told Maddie he can't help. Said he's between jobs. I wiped my hands on a rag. Not my problem. I know, she said quickly. I wasn't asking. Just thought you should know. I didn't answer. I let the silence stretch. Amber stood there a long time before she spoke again. You were the only real parent in this house, she said. And I treated you like a backup plan. I folded the rag, set it down, turned to face her. What do you want from me, Amber? She shook her head. Nothing. I just needed to say it. I believed her. The kids didn't complain anymore. They didn't lash out. They just adjusted. I watched them change in ways small and invisible. Zach washing his plate after dinner. Maddie folding her laundry. Neither of them asked for praise. Neither of them expected it. That's when I knew the shift had taken hold. Not because they were sorry, but because they were adapting. One evening, Zach knocked on the garage door before entering. Just once. No fanfare. Need help? He asked. I handed him the wrench. No speech. No lecture. Later, as we packed up, he looked at me and said, I thought he'd come through. I didn't need to ask who. We never said his name anymore. He said he'd pay for college, Zach added. Told me to relax, that he'd handle it. I waited. Application deadlines are next month. I'm behind. I didn't rescue him. I didn't offer money. I just said, then get started. That's the thing about respect. It doesn't bloom under comfort. It grows through scarcity, through effort, through absence. The absence of my support gave them the space to finally understand what had always been there. Not entitlement, not obligation, just choice. My choice to carry them, and their choice to spit on the hand that held them. Now they were crawling back, but not with demands, with effort. One afternoon, Maddie sat down across from me in the living room, notebook in hand. I want to pay for my own phone, she said. I looked up. I'm going to dog sit for Mrs. Caldwell all weekend. She offered $50. Can you teach me how to track expenses? I stared at her for a long moment. Then I nodded. She handed me the notebook. It was already half full. She'd been planning this for weeks. Amber watched from the hallway, said nothing. Later that night, she came to me again. Not with apologies. Not with excuses. I was wrong, she said. I know. I thought Trevor would grow up, that he'd show up when it mattered. And I let the kids believe that too. She sat beside me on the couch. You were always here, and I made you feel like you weren't. I didn't answer. Some things don't need a reply. She reached for my hand. I didn't pull away. We have to rebuild this, she said. Together. You and me. No, I said. All four of us. Or not at all. She nodded. No tears. Just quiet understanding. Zach applied to trade schools. Said he didn't want to be in debt. Said he liked working with his hands. I helped him revise his personal statement. He didn't ask me to. He just left it on the kitchen counter, open to the second page. Maddie kept walking dogs. She started baking, too. Sold cookies to the neighbors. Amber helped her set up a small online store. I paid for none of it. I watched from a distance. Let them earn every inch. The more they gave, the less I had to. And that was the point. Respect isn't loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It's in the tone of voice. In the work done without being asked. In the absence of entitlement. That's when I knew the balance had shifted. They weren't there yet, not fully. But they were trying. And for the first time, it wasn't because they were afraid of losing something. It was because they realized what they already lost. Amber asked me once more, softly, if things could ever go back to the way they were. No, I said. She looked down. Hurt. But they can become something better, I added. If we're honest. And if it's earned. And just like that, the scales stopped tipping. Not back toward comfort, but toward equity. The debt was being repaid. Not with money, with respect. The quiet didn't come suddenly. It unfolded over weeks, creeping in like fog, slow, patient, absolute. The yelling stopped first, then the slamming doors, then the tension that used to live in the walls, the cold war of glances and shrugs. All of it faded, like a bruise healing just beneath the skin. Zach started cleaning his room, without being asked. Not perfectly, but consistently. His greasy boots stayed by the door. His backpack was packed the night before, not in a rush the morning of. He woke up before his alarm. Drank coffee. Talked less. Worked more. He still didn't say thank you the way most people do. But when I handed him my socket set one evening, he took it carefully, wiped it down after, and placed it back where it belonged. Maddie stopped rolling her eyes. Stopped treating every request like an attack. She took on 2 more clients for her dog walking gig, bought her own phone case with tip money, started baking pies on weekends and selling them for $10 apiece. She came home proud, quietly proud, not for praise, just for proof. Amber changed too, not all at once, but her eyes lingered longer when I spoke. Her tone shifted, less defensive, less tired, more aligned. We weren't in separate corners anymore. We were on the same side of the line. It was subtle. No dramatic apologies. No family meetings. Just a change in temperature. Zach paid for his own gas. Maddie bought her own school supplies. They started texting Trevor less. They stopped waiting for him to show up. They started acting like the adults they thought they already were. And I started sleeping again. Not deep. Not peaceful. But better. For years I'd carried the weight of a family that resented the arms that held it. Now I was just watching them walk, wobbly at times, but on their own legs. No more dragging. No more lifting. One night, I came home to find the lawn already mowed. Zach didn't mention it. The smell of cut grass said enough. Another night, Maddie was baking, and she called from the kitchen. Do you like apple or cherry? I blinked. Apple, I said. She nodded and turned back to the oven like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was acknowledgement. Amber stood beside me, drying a plate. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Not yet. But it was close. We had stopped pretending we were a perfect family. And in doing so, we started becoming a real one. One built on reality, not roles. One built on presence, not pretense. I didn't buy their loyalty anymore. I didn't offer rides or cash or fixes just to stay relevant. I let them come to me, and slowly they did. Zach got accepted to a trade school 2 hours away. He told me last. After Amber. After Maddie. But he told me. I'll need tools, he said. Eventually, I nodded. We'll talk. He paused. I want to buy them myself. Just, maybe you could help me choose? I said yes. That was the first time he hugged me. It was quick, awkward, a half squeeze with a slap on the back. But it happened. Maddie applied for a scholarship, wrote an essay about resilience, asked me to proofread it. I didn't say it was about you, she said. But it kind of is. I read every word. Amber started joining me in the garage again. No speeches, just company. She handed me wrenches, stood quietly while I worked. Sometimes she brought a beer, sometimes just her silence. I should have stood up for you, she said one night, wiping dust off an old shelf. You didn't know you needed to, I said. But you do now. She nodded. That was enough. We weren't healed. Not completely. Wounds like these don't vanish, they harden. They teach. They remind you that love without respect is theft. That sacrifice means nothing when it's invisible. That presence is only power when people choose to see it. I didn't need to be called Dad. I needed to be treated like someone who mattered. And slowly I was. Zach came home from school one weekend with a dent in his bumper. He didn't ask me to fix it. He asked if I could show him how. That's what fatherhood looks like. Not adoration. Not dependence. Respect. Maddie stopped saying, Mom said I could. She started saying, is that okay? To both of us. The shift was small. Monumental. Amber started using we instead of I. We need groceries. We should talk to Maddie. We'll cover that. Took years to get here. 6 to be exact. 6 years of being told I was too much, not enough, not real. 6 years of being taken for granted. Of being the backbone they spat on while they leaned against it. I withdrew not to punish, but to reveal. To show them who really made their lives work. And when that scaffolding was gone, they wobbled. Then they rebuilt. One board at a time. The house is quieter now, but fuller. There's laughter sometimes. Not forced. Not for show. Just moments. And in those moments, I remember why I tried in the first place. Not for gratitude. Not for praise. But for the hope that one day, they'd meet me halfway. We still don't say Dad. But that's okay. Because now, when they speak, it's to me. Not at me. Not around me. Not through Amber. To me. And I answer. Not because I have to. Not because I'm obligated. Because I choose to. That's the difference now. Everything that happens here is a choice. Zach chooses to help. Maddie chooses to ask. Amber chooses to stand beside me. And I choose to stay. But the question remains, for you, for anyone listening. Was I wrong? Was I wrong to pull back? To let the roof leak until someone noticed the rain? To stop fixing a house no one else wanted to maintain? To force a reckoning instead of dying quietly beneath their expectations? They said I wasn't their father. I agreed. And in that agreement, they found their own answers. So tell me, would you have endured it? Would you have stayed? Would you have given everything only to be called nothing? And if they had said the same to you, you're not our dad, would you have kept pretending? Or would you, like me, have finally acted like you weren't?